Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy right here. This is the Holt Knives Specter, Holt Bladeworks Specter, that is. This is a knife that a bunch of different people reached out to me and told me about. They said, you know, Nick, you got to check one of these guys out. You got to pick one of these guys up. And when I saw that they had a pre-order spot open up, I jumped on it, and so here I am. One thing to note, though, a couple of things. Although I, paid full price and everything for this guy, they were aware, I think at some point in time, who I was and that I'm somewhat of a prominent complainer. So that may have led me to have a slightly more positive experience than most. But the thing is, from what I've heard, they're pretty awesome to everybody. So, keep that in mind. But, I'm pretty happy with how things went down at least. So, there you go. And then next thing, let's do a little size comparison real quick. This is actually a nicely sized knife. Right here we have the Spyderco Delica. You can see here we've got the Ontario Rat number 2 and your Rat number 1 here. Pretty straightforward. And then let's actually do a quick measurement on this guy. Coming in, blade length-wise, right around 3.5 inches and change, 3.56 or so, which is a fair amount of blade length there. And then finally, one of the most relevant comparisons is against this little guy. This is my Grimsmo Knives Rask on the top here. And so you can see here that in terms of overall blade length, the Holt is very, very similar, maybe slightly longer. But anyways, there you go. That's the size of this little guy. So let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, and the ugly of this very interesting little knife here. So first off on the good side, Holt Bladeworks. Yeah, you never heard of them probably because, well, they're just a couple of people, quite literally, out of Iowa here in the U.S. They are working out of a garage. They're sort of living the small-time knife maker dream. And you know what? So it's cool. At that level, I always like supporting random artisans all around the world, and this is kind of a nice way to do that. So that to me is a good thing. It's made in the USA by a couple of random people. So that's cool. Next thing, this guy has a single screw clip. You can see here, this is just using one single screw here, but it's done well because the inside of the clip is actually, the clip sits down into this little groove that you actually saw in the handle here, and as a result, there is zero play in this clip, and it's machined well with tight tolerances so that even though there's just one clip here, there's no waggle, there's no wiggle, there's no nothing going on, so I like that very much. Next thing, this guy has an incredible amount of customizability. When you do the ordering, you choose everything. Literally every option is available to you. You can choose your voltage, and they give you a beautiful list of pictures showing what each voltage looks like on the guy. And so you choose exactly what voltages you'd like. You choose the finish that you'd like on the blade, that you choose the finish you'd like on the scale. You choose the overall pattern here. I picked the Sunburst pattern. You choose the pivot. This is one looked more interesting to me. I mean, basically you choose everything. And as an end result, you have many different options and many different ways to make this same knife. And that, to me, is really kind of neat. I'm a big fan of that, and because it means that although it's a knife that a lot of people have, it's custom made for you. This is your knife to your specifications. And I love that. I think it's a really neat approach, and it's a way to make a production knife, because this is production at the end of the day, feel very custom and very neat. So that's good. Next thing, the blade on this guy is great. It is an M390 blade, which is one of the best blade steels out there, and it is very thin behind the edge. This guy absolutely does cut, and just for utility tasks in general, it's a nice blade shape. You get some flat, some belly, a nice point to it. This is a great little blade. I like this very much, and every time I carried it, I was really, frankly, impressed with it. It works very well. And it's also got a very nice finish to it. You can see there's a little bit of reflectivity to it, but it's not so incredibly over the top, and it's also, it shows some fingertips. I mean, it shows fingertips if you put a fingertip on there. Shows some fingerprints, but, it's not so bad. It's not like a smudgy wreck or anything like that, so that's good. Next thing, the sharpening on here is beautiful. Seriously, look at this. This is a mirror polished edge, and that's from the factory. Very seldom do you get true mirror polishes from the factory directly. This guy has it. What the heck is it? Three Sisters Forge knife had it. It's very unusual, and so seeing it here, that's really cool. I'm a big fan of that. And so the sharpening job was very nicely done. Next thing, there are very, very nice details on this guy. For instance, when you flip this guy, your finger falls into this little area here where there are these nice grooves, which kind of captures your finger. It's a nice little landing area for your finger to land in after you finish the flip. That's always a nice thing. The Sunburst Milling on this guy looks really, really great. I mean, you can see here, oh yeah, look at that pattern. It's absolutely spectacular. The pivot on here is nicely detailed. No objections there. The internal milling that you saw during the course of the disassembly is absolutely beautifully done. You have a very nice box in presentation, which you don't have handy at the moment. You've got a nice serial number engraved in there along with the knife number. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but that's cool. You've got this just kind of very cool feeling to it overall, this area here. I like this a lot because although it's very clearly just derived mathematically from the sunburst pattern hitting this ridge, it gives it this beautiful ocean wave sort of feeling that I just find absolutely attractive. I think this is really, really nicely done. The jimping on here is good. The plunge grind is really well done. Like, every damn part of this knife is just replete with details. This is one of those knives that you can tell somebody spent way too much time just staring at and thinking on and tweaking and adjusting and making absolutely perfect before they did it, and you can absolutely tell that. And so these details are incredible. Next, on the good side, the action on this is very good. This is a very, very smooth knife. It's not quite a falchutty knife. I don't get the impression that was what they were after. But it is an action where absolutely just a little tap will send it flying home. No freaking problem. It's not, for instance, as smooth on the false shot as the Grimsmo Rask is, but that's hard to do. And frankly, it doesn't seem like that was what they were after anyways. But it has this really, really nice action that is absolutely more than smooth enough on the close, which is just a beautiful thing. And then finally, on the good side, this is actually a really nice value. You're looking at $495 for this knife. And look, I know a bunch of people are jumping out like, oh my God, Nick, you bourgeois bastard, $400. But no, bear with me here. Because this is $495, but it is besting routinely knives that are way, way more expensive. Compare this to a $700 Shirogorov Neon. Yeah, this is winning by a freaking mile. Compare this to the Grimsmo Rask, who's doing something very similar for $900. We'll do the comparison a little more explicitly later, but yeah, still, this is a really, really incredible knife for the amount of money that you're paying. That's a lot of freaking money. But for what you're paying here, you're getting something amazing. And so to me, although it's a lot of money, it is a really good value. And so that is what's good to me, is that the action is really good, the value is there, the details are great, the sharpening was beautifully done, it's got a great blade with great customizability, a single screw clip that's been done well, and it's made by this just random couple in the middle of Iowa who've decided, you know what, we're going to make an incredible knife. So that's good. On the great side, there are actually two things. Now, look, I don't usually do that. Usually I just pick one of them, but there are two things that are very independently different. One of which is the communication. Buying a knife from a small maker can be a scary process because you send a bunch of money off and you don't hear a damn thing for months and months. That was not the case with these folks. When I put in my order, I got a customized, personalized email from Angie, it's Joe and Angie, and then at every step of the process, okay, we're going to be making your knife here soon. Any tweaks, any changes you want? Okay, we made your knife. Here is a video of your knife, your specific knife in action. Look at the color. Here are a bunch of pictures. Tell us if everything looks good. Holy crap, that's nice. I mean, they send you a video for approval. That's amazing, and it's something I'd never even heard of before. I know that this is partly a factor that they're not making that many of them. They can afford to spend that time, but wow, was it a good experience. And it's so different than a lot of what you put up with from other makers. I love that very much, and so that's great. But the other thing that's great about this knife, and that is really astounding, it's probably the best I've had, is the detent on this. This is probably my favorite detent sound and feel ever. Just listen to this. It's different. It's different than like the Norseman, which has an incredible detent, and the Northarm Skaha. This has this single click detent. It's just, oh my God, incredible. And it's using a very interesting detent system that I showed off in the disassembly and maintenance video that you should actually check out. I mean, the closest thing I've seen to this is like the Brian Nadeau milled Detent. But this is really, really well tuned, such that it fires 100% reliably with this just beautiful action. It's so nice. It goes from 0 to, it's just, and then it needs no detent ramp because it's got a ramp in the detent. It's just so damn good. I love these Detent so much. And if I could put this Detent on every other knife I own, I would do it in a heartbeat because it's just so good. So to me, those are the great things, is that the Detent is incredible here, and then the communication that they're giving you is absolutely just great. And both of those things are kind of, well, blowing me away. On the bad side, there are definitely a couple of little issues here. The first of which is actually the blade length that we're seeing here. We are coming in at 3.6 inches here, at least by any reasonable measure. And the problem with that is that you're coming in just over a legal line. In a lot of places, 3.5 inches is the line, and this knife is 0.1 inches away from being not a felony. And that's always silly to me. If you're going to make a knife, you should make it right under the line rather than right over it, because you're not getting anything out of that extra 0.1 inch except arrested. So that's always an ugly thing. Not a big fan of that. Next thing, the logo on here kind of looks like the lion from The Wizard of Oz. I don't know if they're going for that. They don't seem cowardly, but hey, whatever. I don't know. But the problem is it is kind of a detailed logo that's being produced without quite enough detail. I think they could do a better job etching that and come up with something more impressive, or they could just do something a little simpler. I don't freaking know. But whatever it is, that just seems a little bit odd. I'm not a big fan of that. Next thing, this does have this weirdly long serial number, which is actually in hexadecimal from the looks of it there, given that it's got F's in there. But the thing is, they're crypto nerds. I mean, talking to these folks, I gather that's something that they're interested in. I share that too. So you know what? I kind of like it. At some level, if they've got a hash value on the inside of a knife, I'm totally good with that. That's hash is in cryptographic hash, not like 50 pounds of hash. That's a different thing entirely. Anyways, beside the point. So there you go. Next thing, I gotta say, design-wise, my only critique is that the handle and the blade kind of feel a little bit disconnected. The blade is this one single smooth thing, whereas the handle's got a bunch of things going on. It's got this little line here that doesn't really match up with anything else on the blade here. That's the only area where I kind of question the design, but you know what? I think on the whole it works, functionally speaking, so I'm fine with that. Next thing, the backspacer on this guy, and I am nitpicking hard here, but, you know, might as well, right? The backspacer on this guy is not exactly flush. You can see here that the tips of the backspacer do not actually match the tips of the spine here. And so as a result, as you run your finger across there, you definitely feel that all throughout. And that, to me, I don't know if that's the goal or what, but it felt like a weird, like, whoops, missed that one. Not a big deal, but it's certainly a thing. Getting into slightly bigger deals, although not so big. They very, very slightly missed the sharpening choil. There is just a little bit of plunge grind that's further down here, and as a result, the blade's got just this little tiniest bit of smile kind of down at the end there. It's not a big deal, but, you know, an extra 0.5 millimeter or something would do them some good. Then finally, there are a couple of hot spots as you grip this guy. The big one's coming off of the front and back of the clip here. You can see they've got these corners here and here. And unfortunately, that's not a great thing, and you can see that this has been dealt with on the rasp here by adding extra chamfers here and here. Or on other clips, you know, that's often a way to deal with that, but these little hot spots here are a slight problem. But to me, that's the bad. That's what I got here, is that the hot spots are on the side of the clip there. Sharpening choil is not quite big enough. The backspacer is not quite flush. The handle and the blade feel a little disconnected design-wise. They have this weirdly long serial number in there, but it's hex, so I'll give them a pass there. I'm not super in love with the logo, Cowardly Lion thing, and the fact that they're just over the line rather than just under it, legally speaking, that always frustrates me. On the ugly front, there is exactly one ugly issue with this knife, but it is indeed ugly, and take a look at this. I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit here. Look at the top of the lock bar. Do you see how freaking sharp that is? I mean, especially when the knife is open, it's very easy to just grab something on there and just pull. This is an ugly, ugly surface. I mean, seriously, you can rip fabric and whatnot using that. That's not great. I'm not a big fan of that, and this just needs to be knocked down a little bit. If they put a little tiny chamfer on the front of that, then this would be absolutely good to go, but they just need to do that. But as it is, that is an ugly thing, because as you're grabbing this guy, you're going to feel that digging into your finger, and that's not a great thing. So that is actually the only ugly thing I found on this, and that's, you know, 30 seconds with the CNC plan, and you got that fixed. So can't get too bent out of shape about that. So let's go into the final conclusion here. And my final conclusion here is honestly that this is a knife that rivals any CNC-made custom production knife that's out there. I mean, seriously, this beats Shirogorov. This is right up there with Rockstead, with Grimsmo, with Koenig, with Brian and Doe, and more. This knife is able to run with the very best of them, and with the retail price taken into account, holy crap, is this thing good. Yeah, there were a couple of places here where it could use an iteration or two. This little lock bar thing, the sides of the clip, maybe the logo, etc. But this is a very, very solid competitor to the best of the best of the best. And, this is bringing me a lot of joy because it seems like we are entering the era of the garage machinist. I mean, the Grimsmos are maybe the most public example, but there are other folks like this. Brian the Doe, North Arm Knives, the Holts. There were a lot of people out there who can pick up a CNC machine that they can fit in their freaking garage and do something incredible. A smart person with good design sense can now have access to the tools needed to do this incredible knife making at these small scales at home. And some jackass with a mill in the garage, a pair of jackasses, I guess, can do something that can beat damn near any custom knife out there in the world. And this is a great thing for knife making. At least I believe that, because the decentralization here is huge. It's not the case that you need to be one of the big companies to create something incredible. No, not remotely. Even if one of the big companies or all of them falter, there's still going to be great knives out there. And the individual makers here are thinking things through, and they're keeping pressure on everybody else. These kinds of knives that are available for $500 are a strong downward pressure on the knife market in general, which is really good. I mean, when somebody like the Holtz or Koenig can make a knife that is as nice as anything Shirogorov is selling for less than their cheapest product, it means that the bigger companies need to do, they need to do better. They need to work harder, lower prices. And seeing the bar raised like this is really, really cool. Of course, like I said, it's got the issues. They could do some work on this. The logo could use some refinement. The sharpening choil, just a little tiny bit there. They got a couple of hot spots to cool off, and the lock bar top, yeah, it needs some love. But the simple fact is that this is a stellar knife. The only knife I've handled that really competes with this on a just like, this is very, very good level, is the Grimsmo Rask here. This guy right here, the Holt, has a better detent than me. I like the detent on this more than I like the detent on the Rask. Mind you, the Rask has a better false shut sort of thing, which I do tend to appreciate. This guy is more of a tap shut sort of thing. The Rask also, I'll say, does feel a little bit more designed. The Rask feels like a more cohesive sort of thing, whereas this guy, not quite so much as there. But the thing is, this guy, the Holt, is $400 cheaper given the new price raise. So without the lock bar snag here, which is the only really big issue with this guy, this could very easily be a toss-up. And frankly, even with this lock bar snag, I'm loving this knife. I don't have a reason to own this knife at all. I mean, seriously, I have the Rask. I have a bunch of other really high-end pieces. But I have found myself dragging my feet on this review. I've been sitting there, like, oh, well, if I review it, then I'm going to have to sell it. Because I don't want to review it yet. I'm going to get it. Because it's so damn freaking good. And, frankly, even with that lock bar snag, I'm tempted to take a file to it myself, just knock the top of that off, or just order another from a later batch. And that's probably going to happen. Let's just be real here, because this is such a damn good knife, and with a little bit more refinement, it will be damn near perfect, and it's already very, very close. So anyways, this right here, the Holt Specter, is an incredible freaking knife. I'm really impressed with it, and, Kevin Cleary wrote an article for it about Knife News saying, this is revolutionary. This is an incredible, and you know what? He's right. This is a really good piece. And they are almost inevitably going to be cast into the internet hype cycle in the same way that the Grimsmos have been. And when that happens, it's well-deserved. But I really, really do hope that they are able to hold on to the customer service that has made this knife so special, and to this sense of perfection, as they inevitably get swept up into the hype. But, hey, this is really cool. Well done, Joe. Well done, Angie. And have yourselves, everybody else, an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for trusting me as your knife inspector. Okay, have a good one, everybody. Bye now.